VRN, where educators share what works.
So I think these acronyms we've been using for years really come in very, very handy to help us with prompts when we're using ChatGPT.
There's a lot of brain research that confirms that acronyms really help us. So hearing these when working with students, like did you prep, did you edit, did you grasp, could help students as they are using ChatGPT.
Well, good morning, everybody. How you all doing today?
Morning.
Good morning.
Very well, thank you.
So I have a confession to make. I've got GIGO on the mind. GIGO is an old term that I was first exposed to when I took a computer science class in college. And I'm not sure if the computer scientists and programming community still uses it, but the way it was taught to me, it stands for garbage in, garbage out. You only get out of a computer interface given the quality of what you put in. And you probably all know why I have GIGO on the mind, because I'm starting to realize that the quality of what we can get out of AI and ChatGPT depends, I don't know, maybe even exclusively on the quality of the prompt that we are using on the front end. So here to pick your brains, what do you think about how we're prompting AI, and probably much more importantly, how we're guiding our own students as they use and prompt AI?
So what are we doing with students? I think this really all goes back to digital citizenship. And part of that is even just learning the tools that you use, what is vetted, what is not, but how to search for something in the iteration and terms that we use so that you are getting at what exactly you need. So there's a lot of teaching, I think, that needs to happen before you even introduce ChatGPT or AI.
I'm actually working with my students at the moment all about creating prompt banks, personalized prompt banks for themselves. So I'm creating a personalized prompt bank for myself for the flip videos and the flip courses that I'm doing. As I play around with it, I'm finding the terms that really help. So when I'm making videos, I will say, can you turn this into a narrative? What I find after that is I quite often have to say, make it suitable for non-native speakers of English, which my students are. I'm writing this list of terms that I find really, really useful. For example, please shorten this, not summarize this. I need to say, please shorten this slightly. We're doing this actually as an assignment in our course on Mastering AI Chatbots. So each of the students has come up with an idea for an end of semester project, something personal that really grabs their interest. One of them says they're a photographer, they want to work on an Instagram page, so they're working towards that. So each of them has chosen a personal subject, and what they're doing as they work towards building that, they're creating their own prompt bank. They're working out what works really well, and they're keeping a record of those terms, and that's actually going to be part of the final assessment. They'll add that in. So they're playing with it, and they're working out what works well for them.
I was just going to say, that is a really cool lesson, and it just reminded me of how teachers have been doing similar things for years and preparing for, I guess, this point in time and this new tool. The iteration of when you're doing like writer's workshop and maybe saving a list of terms or vocabulary words, or when you're doing research even, and you have to refine your language so you find the article that you really need as opposed to what just pops up. So we're now going to take all the skills that we've been using and helping students with, and now just face it in a different direction is what I thought of when I heard Caroline.
I agree and disagree, Julie. I think it's really exciting what you said, but I see differences as well. I agree that this kind of procedure of keeping lists and being iterative has been a pedagogical approach, and something that many educators are comfortable with, and something that education in general has some tools for. But what strikes me as being different is we, as the educator, the instructor, we always entered the room as the expert, and we would guide students through this iterative process. Whereas I know I very much feel like, and from what Dan and Caroline said, they described, that we are still the students. This technology is so new that we are learning as we play, and no one's really educating or training us yet on these tools.
Yeah.
So I think what educators really need to get comfortable with is in this context, we can rely on those old tools that we've been using, but we need to also be comfortable with us and the students being students together as we explore what AI can do.
Tom, I want to jump in here because recently I have been training teachers on how to use these tools. There's a book, it's called The AI Classroom, and I've been able to pull a lot from that. It's an incredible book. But one of the acronyms that it gives is PREP. And what it stands for is prompt, role, explicit, parameter. So you put into ChatGPT the prompt that you want, followed by the role that you want ChatGPT to take on.
Right.
And then you're going to be very explicit in what you want it to do regarding that prompt in that role. And then you're going to set parameters. So whether it's, I need this geared towards juniors in college or juniors in high school, whatever it may be, so that it knows how to frame its response. And if you can follow that specific setup, you're going to get results that will blow your mind.
Now I'm angry, Dan. You've sufficiently angered me because what you just summarized in 2 minutes, it took me 10 months to figure out empirically on my own.
Right. And that's just it. It's not something that, I came up with. I've been trying this on my own, and I found this formula, and it's totally changed what I get out of ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And then there's the second half to that acronym, and it's edit. And in that process, it's, you still have to evaluate and determine, really go over that specific prompt or response to ensure that it is accurate. So you're still the expert, you're still, in charge of your classroom and things like that. But the setup for prep is incredible.
So is edit, evaluate, determine, iterate, try again? I'm just trying to fill in the letters, but that seems to be a logical flow for the second phase.
So you have prep and edit. And again, this was developed by Amanda Fox, Dan Fitzpatrick, and Brad Weinstein. And the edit, it stands for evaluate, determine, identify, and transform. So we have to evaluate what AI is putting out. Then we have to determine the accuracy of that content, identify any biases or misinformation that it has produced, and then we can transform that content to reflect, any new findings that we have. Once we go through that prep portion, then we have to edit what it produces.
So powerful. That's such an effective tool.
I've got an acronym that I use a lot when I'm trying to design authentic assessments. And because we use UBD, Understanding by Design, or Backwards Design, they have the acronym GRASP for designing authentic assessments. And that stands for goal, role, audience, situation, product, and then the standards is the rubric or the learning outcomes. And I've always used this acronym to design end of course assessments to try and make them authentic. Now, inputting that into ChatGPT, it's just giving me so many more ideas. It's bringing it to another level. And again, putting things in the students' hands for our end of semester projects. My students are going to structure their projects around this. So they're saying what their role is in the situation, who their audience is, what their goal is, what the product is going to be. So I think these acronyms we've been using for years really come in very, very handy to help us with prompts when we're using ChatGPT.
There's a lot of brain research that confirms that acronyms really help us. So hearing these when working with students, like did you prep, did you edit, did you grasp, could help students as they are using ChatGPT. And Tom, I wanted to go back to, you said either you were mad or frustrated or whatever because it took you 10 months. I think somehow we have to point out that that's just where you're supposed to be, because you need to go through that play and look at everything that you learned in doing that. But now you found a colleague in your personal learning network that has another way, summed it up. But that summing up wouldn't have made sense to you if you didn't play in the playground.
Oh, that's so true. That's such a good point. So, Caroline, one thing I wanted to ask you, you have quite a bit of experience working with students as they work with AI, and granted college-age students, so a little bit older than K-12. But what is their overall experience with AI? Is there frustration? Is there excitement? Are they patient with the technology because they're quote-unquote digital natives? In general, how do you find students are interacting with AI when they're novices?
I don't find them to be novices, and they're excited about everything. I just love it. I'm learning so much from them. One thing I'm actually doing at the moment while I'm prepping my classes for this course on mastering AI chatbots is each week I'm going out for lunch with my daughter, who's 17, and I talk through some of my ideas. And her ideas are way better than mine. She's suggesting tools, different ideas, things we can do. I really feel I'm learning more from this at the moment. My job is just to give the opportunity and guide. We're all learning together, as you were saying, Tom.
Oh, that's awesome. And Dan, you're a little bit on the other end of the age spectrum. What's your experience with students that are more middle school aged?
Their experience with AI tends to be centered around social media. So Snap AI. They really are intrigued by what AI can do when I show them different strategies or check out what this particular tool can do. It is mind-blowing because they're like, how on earth did it do that? To me, it's just interesting to see how their world will open up the more they get to play with these tools. And like I said earlier, to be able to play with the tool to make something better, to improve society or to improve a project, they have to be given opportunities to see benefits of a tool, not just, I think, go explore on their own. That's when it becomes, I think, a little bit more dangerous.
My friends some of them happen to also be educators who are sharing what they're doing with their children or their students is, yes, exploring it together. And they're also explaining how students or the children are so excited. And like when the new version came out, the kids already knew, like, hey, it's ChatGPT 4 or 3D or whatever. Like the kids already know. And they're really excited and want to and try and learn and compare it to what they're doing with their homework. But as you said, Dan, my colleagues and my friends are doing it alongside their children who are elementary age, middle school age. They're alongside them, learning with them, but also making sure that they're safe.
Julie, I just want to jump in here. I was talking with Ron Berger. He's the CPO of EL Education. He was explaining when to step in and when to step out when guiding students. And one of the things that he said was, when you're first introducing something to students, we have to step in. We have to provide them with that explicit picture of what they need to be able to do with something.
And that's exactly my role as a staff developer or an instructional person. I always want to make sure that I share a little history, because I think it's important for us to know just a little history of what we're doing, but more importantly, as you said, the why of what we're doing and where it can go. So I have to play first and model for teachers, go into a classroom and sample and try so that it's authentic when I bring it to staff development to say, here's a lesson I tried, here's how it was successful, and here's where I'm still learning too.
But what I'm excited by what Julie, you've shared and what Dan is saying, is this idea that the tools and the skills, and Dan, I'm even going to say the instincts that you summarized around guiding students with AI are the very tools and instincts we as educators have been honing for our entire career.
Yep.
What I'm starting to realize in my mind is I need to think of AI as just another round of exit tickets or another round of clickers or just another thing that I'm integrating into my classroom. But I should do it with the same exact flow of explaining how it's used, modeling how it's used, doing kind of a beta test with the students where it's guided in practice, and then stepping back and let the tool do its magic. I don't know why I was overthinking this, but I think that I was.
Tom, at the beginning of the year, we typically train our students how to interact with us. these are my office hours, this would be an appropriate way to dialogue with me in the classroom, this would be inappropriate. We have very explicit instructions on what students are to do when they're interacting with us. We need to do the exact same thing when they're interacting with ChatGPT or any other AI. We have to give them the explicit instruction on how to interact with this additional resource in the room that sometimes is more knowledgeable than I am.
And that is the key term, explicit instruction. Absolutely. And Tom, you're absolutely right too. As a tech person, I'm just like, it's just a new tool. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Take all those things that you know, and now how do you apply it to your new tool in your tool belt? And that doesn't mean that you have to always use that tool. Now you have another one.
I think my block, if I can verbalize it, is that I was trying to consider the output of ChatGPT as the tool or the resource. And because that output is so amorphous and unpredictable, and Dan, I'll steal your phrase, and smarter than even I am, I couldn't wrap my mind around this as just another tool. What I realize now in this conversation is I need to think of the input almost as the tool. I'm guiding students on the input, not necessarily the output. I'm integrating how we input information to AI. Does that make sense, or am I a side out?
So much sense.
And Tom, so much of what we do in a classroom is we teach kids how to ask good questions.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was a quote I saw recently that said, it's not about your students being able to answer every question that you ask them, but it's about them being able to ask you questions that you can't answer. Getting kids to that point, that's what we need. We need them to be able to start saying, okay, my teacher doesn't necessarily know this. How can I use ChatGPT or some other AI tool, Claude, whatever, and get it to respond appropriately?
And a lot of critical thinking goes into that. There's a lot of opportunity for learning.
I love the idea of getting our students to pose more and more questions. On my course this year, I've actually, because it's flipped, I've got videos I've made beforehand and prior knowledge questions and quizzes. But I've actually put up a blank Padlet at the start, before each lesson, and it's specifically for my students to pose questions, to make suggestions, to share links with tools. And we're drawing on this as a resource in the classroom based on their ideas coming up before class. So I really love, and I say to the students, we want to come out at the end of this class with more questions, not less questions. We're developing and expanding those questions into the next lesson.
Caroline,
Talk about modeling scholarship, right, Caroline? That's what scholarship is.
Yes.
Caroline, can you tell more about what Padlet is? Because that's a tool I just discovered, but I'd love to be able to understand exactly what Padlet is.
Oh, it's great. It's basically an electronic pinboard. So I use these in all my lessons. The student, you just share either a QR code or you share a link, and then the students can all access it. So this is how we're working on our final projects at the moment. I gave a link, and during the class, the students were all accessing it and writing their initial ideas for their final projects. We had it, on the projector, and then we were looking at each other's ideas. You can add comments. It stays live and it's dynamic. You can add to it. I use it for so many different things, but definitely for posing questions at the start of a class. And we always come back to that Padlet at the end of the class and see if we can answer the questions that were posed at the beginning.
It's a tool where when I first saw it, I thought it looked like Pinterest. I thought it looked like a Pinterest board.
Exactly. And it's got different functions. You can do, a wall, a grid. You can create timelines on it as well, or you can create concept maps. There are lots of different functions for it. So when I'm teaching forensic linguistics and we look at a different case each week, the students actually recreate a timeline of the most important parts of the case using a Padlet.
There's, and it's driving me crazy because I'm trying to Google it behind the scenes here. Maybe somebody remembers. There is a questioning technique that was pretty popular a couple of years ago. The whole point of it was to get kids to ask questions. You would either read something to them or you would show them a picture, and then you would ask them to just ask questions. And then you would go through the process and say which ones are questions, which can be turned into statements. And it was like a whole, and it's driving me nuts. I just wanted to if I could have remembered it to share it, to get back to the point of, yes, teaching students good questions is so important, and it is part of that critical thinking, problem solving, and the process more important than the product. That's going to drive me crazy all day now. So, yeah.
So when I came in with GIGO on the mind, and now I've got prep and edit and a whole bunch of other acronyms on the mind as well. As we wrap up and start to head into our day and meet with our wonderful students, maybe we could just go around the table and share some do's and don'ts that we think are important for using AI. Either do's and don'ts for when we guide our students or when we use it ourselves. But a short list of what have you all found works really well, and what have you all found kind of goes into the dark alley of wasting some time on the platform.
One of the things that I've had to keep in mind when using this is what I'm asking students to do with AI. Can I tie that to a standard, or am I just having them explore? Because I don't have time in my classroom to waste. I have to maximize this time I have with students. I also have to be able to justify what I'm doing with students. And I have to be able to say, I'm doing this in my classroom because it connects to this standard, and it's going to move us closer to mastery of that standard.
The way I have been currently using it is more selfishly for my dissertation and what I'm doing. That's how I'm using it to learn, so I can relate it back to educators that I work with. So I've been using it that way. And what I felt is most important is I've been sitting with my husband when I do it, because another voice helps me refine my questions when I don't get the answer that I was really looking for. So as I'm learning something new, I always like to learn it with a partner so that I can get some feedback and suggestions.
I could share something. It's not quite in line with what we're talking about, but it's my birthday, and
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Caroline.
Thank you. 50 has arrived. And with my students yesterday, we actually planned a birthday outing for me. ChatGPT came up with it. They helped me input the ideas. So I live in a beautiful historic area. So we asked it about the area. We said, it's my birthday. I'd like to go out. What can I do? It made some suggestions for places to go. My favorite thing, it came up with a scavenger hunt. So I've got to go around and find 20 different historical places and take photographs of them, the old fountain, the church, and then it suggested local delicacies. So I'm going to end on the waterfront in a beautiful restaurant, eating local foods from my area.
Very cool. I guess I'm leaving with the do of treating ChatGPT and similar platforms as a brilliant toddler, in the sense of knowing that it has a wealth of information behind it, but having the patience to guide it and coach it to give me what I need, what I want. And the don't, I don't want to get too Freudian here, but I think the don't is to don't beat myself up when I feel like a student sitting in front of this interface, and allow myself to play and be patient with it as I build my skills, and be okay doing the same in real time with my students. I think if we all learn together, we can really leverage this tool for everything that it's worth. So, have a great day, everybody. Good luck in the classroom. Caroline, you stay put, because I'm going to run across the street and get a cupcake and a candle. But everybody, you have a great week in the classroom.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Caroline.
Thank you.
You can see links to all the tools mentioned in this episode in the show notes. Thanks for listening.